Hi, friends. Welcome to week 6 of our pilgrimage, our Lenten journey. And this week we've got a great guest, amazing guest with us, Charlie Carron. And he's going to be helping us reflect on the theme of environment, kind of unpacking that a little bit. So, really excited to dive into this theme and this focus for us. Charlie, welcome.
Thank you.
Wondered if you could
Interesting.
kind of just introduce yourself a bit to everyone and share a bit what kind of maybe has brought you to this interview as well.
Yeah, of course. So I am the youth pastor at Hope Chapel, which is where Malcolm and his family worship, and some of your kids are in our youth and children's groups. And um, what's brought me here, I'm not able to participate with you in body on Tuesday nights. Those of you who do renew at this time, but I've been really enjoying being part of the Renew community for this Lent. And I've given up caffeine, so I'm not doing the full Malcolm Bourne, full Monty Lent package. I've got two very small children, but so I thought caffeine actually was enough for me. I've been
Yeah.
drinking coffee every day for about a decade, and I've been loving just doing it. I'm kind of a lurker in the WhatsApp group, really. I've been really enjoying following along with everyone's encouragements, and yeah, I'm finding it brilliant. So thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, no problem. No, it's great to have you involved and quite a few of the youth that are involved in your,
Yes.
in your weekly services and stuff are actually being part of Renew for quite a long time now. So it's lovely to
Yeah.
have you kind of seeing that part of what their weekly rhythm is as well.
Yeah, I'm learning from them. I'm being apprenticed by them.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Oh, that's good. Oh, brilliant. It's so good to have you here. So let's start environment. So it has many
Yes.
meanings.
Yeah.
Just wondered what the kind of the meaning for environment could mean for you.
Yeah, well, it has many meanings. Like it's a very busy word, isn't it, in modern life? It's very loaded. Um, I think though the two things that I kind of really think about in if we ignore sort of geopolitical meanings of the word environment, I think
Yeah,
um, to me, I think about the natural world. I
yeah,
think about the planet that we live on, this green and blue planet that we live on, which is, you know, our home. And I think about also the spaces that we occupy, our environments, our habitats, our sort of um, our places. You think about like a heat map at half time in a game of football, they do the analysis of where the players have run.
no, right,
So
yeah,
you know what I mean, where you can sort of
yeah,
see where Kevin De Bruyne has been on the field. And I think about
yeah,
that. I think about the environments that I drive and walk around in um, and move through my life, my home, my kids' nursery, my work, those kinds of things.
yeah,
Uh, so that's what I think about. I think about, I suppose, natural world. I think about our spaces, the spaces we inhabit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's fascinating, isn't it? We have these probably paths that we travel, we
Yeah.
commute, we journey on every day, and that they're very much ingrained in our routine. But sometimes we can overlook them in some ways if we just think about maybe just our house uh,
Yes.
or those sort of things, or a school or whatever it is that you kind of see as a. But actually, yeah, it's these pathways to those places are actually a big part of that environment, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And then not to mention online space,
Yeah.
I was born in 1990. So when I was sort of 16 or 17, that's when the iPhone was released.
Mm,
Probably I was probably on social media just a few years before that, so like mid-teens. Um, and so people your kids' age and when my kids get a bit older, they'll be genuine digital natives, won't they?
yeah.
But I'm sort of first generation of like split physical space and digital space. The first generation almost immigrant of kind of figuring out I've lived half my life now, I guess, in that blended world of
Yeah.
digital and physical. So I also, those are if you ask teenagers um, about their digital spaces. Those are really powerful, important, real
Yeah.
environments for them, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah.
That's where their friends are. That's,
Yeah.
they inhabit them in a way that maybe those of us who are a bit older find hard to understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And even just this interview here, this conversation is on this
Yeah,
kind of platform of YouTube and wherever else we share it. And that is, so we're it's not a traditional pilgrimage in that sense where we're literally on the
yeah,
road. There's movement, there's reflection, there's prayer in it, but it's not traditional. But there is, yeah. So this is an environment that we're using
yeah,
to build community. It's interesting.
yeah.
I had a quite a disturbing conversation about a year ago with I had a chance meeting with a venture capitalist, and this guy invests millions every month into new tech, and he basically believes that our future is one where we basically would be plugged into the net, and we won't physically do anything, go anywhere, but we'd experience smells and touch and everything like that by going. So if we want to go to Europe, we'd stay in the comfort of Silicon Valley
Mm,
and go to Europe
mm,
digitally. And his theory is, well, that's where we're going to be. That's his prediction, his prophetic kind of vision. I'm just going to invest in everything that's in between where we are now and that reality. Quite scary for you think about that kind of level of influence and investment that can go into that,
yeah,
pushing
yeah,
society that way. But so he's given up almost. I'd say he's given up on the physical environment.
yeah,
Um, I think there's obviously there's great immense beauty in physical environment, but
yeah,
we can learn and use the digital and the other these kind of new environments in a way that would enhance our life, hopefully more holistically. That to me, his vision doesn't seem holistic. It seems quite vacuous. But
yeah. Well, yeah, it fits for a venture capitalist, doesn't it? You can see why that would
okay.
be. You can see why that would be a great product opportunity there, can't you? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, man. So you grew up on a farm, is that right?
I did and I didn't. So my mum has four brothers, so
Right.
she was never going to be the farmer.
Ah, I
My
see.
dad's not a
Okay.
farmer.
Yeah.
My dad was an engineer, but I grew up in a farming community and a farming village, and I always worked on farms. So when I was 13 and quite naughty, my mum was just like, you have to get a job. Like like that I have to get you out into something that's going to be good for you and show you something different. And so she just arranged it with a local farmer, and at 13, I just started working, and that was great. It was the only time of my life that I had like more money than my friends. So
Right. Okay.
because
Well, that's
I
then something for farming as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no. So I've been around farming forever, and still, my cousins are farmers, my uncles are farmers, and
Yeah.
it's a real privilege to be sort of connected to it, but also it's incredibly tough for them. So
Yeah.
I also count my blessings that I'm actually that I have the freedom, I suppose, to go and do other things. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. So you had a very kind of tangible, hands-on experience of working the land and kind of
yeah,
the natural environment. Um,
yeah,
I'm always very encouraged by looking at nature and I love being in the woods, for being in. I also kind of grew up working on farms, with friends' farms and those things. So love that kind of cycle of life. There's a harshness to it. It's this kind of
yeah,
like brutal and beautiful. Like it's
yeah,
brutal. It's a funny
yeah.
thing,
Nice.
but
Yeah,
it is
it
quite
is.
amazing. So, and I think there is great hope that we can find in these things. I don't know if that's your experience. Would you feel that being in the natural environment is a hopeful thing?
Yeah, 100%. But if you kind of go back in time, it takes time, doesn't it, to learn lessons like that. You kind of
Yeah.
if you grow up rural and you grow up in that kind of environment, you maybe you don't know the blessing that it is. You're kind of very focused on the fact that there's no buses and you can't go 10-pin bowling or whatever it is that you're kind of thinking about. Um, and so a lot of the lessons I've learned from like that childhood and nature are really retrospective lessons.
Yeah.
So I I draw so much strength. I absolutely love I love the Sermon on the Mount in general and Matthew's Gospel, but the idea that Jesus brings to us, to consider the birds of the air
Yeah.
and see that they do not
Mm.
toil or sow or store away in barns, and yet your Heavenly Father cares for them. Um, you know, I, I I have this map, this childhood map, I suppose, of memories and just texture to draw upon to see the goodness of the ecosystem
Yeah.
that we live in. We've been given this beautiful ecosystem that cares
Yeah.
for itself, that has this cyclical. I'm sure we're talking a bit about cycles, about seasons and
Yeah.
ups and downs and peaks and troughs, but um, yeah, I think once you get into scripture and particularly, parables, the teachings, the ways of Jesus, I suddenly had this, which I'm so blessed to have, um, this whole texture for understanding those things. I never thought that I had a particularly kind of literary childhood or intellectual childhood. I think I grew up in church, so I knew the scriptures pretty well, and then I had also grown up in a very beautiful place. So I
Yeah.
went away to uni and I studied English lit, and I felt a bit sort of not very sophisticated and not very cool in that environment. And I realized actually that those two things are absolutely massive for for
Yeah.
reading literature, but also just for I suppose navigating your way through life, and understanding
Yeah.
these the way that nature cares for itself. It is a kind of an ecosystem that
Mm.
produces and grows, and that's beautiful.
I mean, maybe we should just talk a bit about the seasons now. In that you and that
Yeah.
it's definitely something that has really resonated with me. But yeah, how does that kind of that cycle of seasons and particularly in this country we've got that we've got the winter, the spring, the summer, and the autumn.
Yeah.
Very clear kind of defined areas and seasons. Um, yeah, well, how has that played into your life?
Yeah, I think for me, like a big reflective moment on that was COVID.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that's the same for a lot of people, but I had these kind of big life moments during COVID, these quite big rites of passage type moments. So I turned 30. We had our first child.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I just after COVID, as we were kind of coming out of restrictions, I tore my ACL. So I resonate with Howard's story the other day, of kind of um, the damage of rugby upon the knees
Yeah.
and the cartilage.
Yeah.
So and then also it was a bit of a societal like rite of passage, wasn't it, for a lot of
Yeah.
people, where for a lot of us, I think we came to the end of the life that we thought we were living.
Yeah.
Um, and this great national moment, global moment, I suppose, of being weaned off lots of the things that are fueling identity and things like that. And I think that COVID and that shutting down sort of sense, that wintering
Mm.
hardship, I think, and the other things that had happened in my life along with that, obviously having a baby at that time was like that's the opposite end of the scale, isn't it? It's an abundant life and it's something new springing forth. But also, when you become a parent, as you'll know, lots of things do end,
Yeah.
and sort of COVID and parenting at the same time. It's like the end of different friendships in some
Mm.
ways, or they weren't the same as they were before. And so I just think like the imagery that we have in nature, the imagery we have in the scriptures, that's all the way through this idea of exile and exodus, or this idea of the fruit dying and the seed going into the ground,
Yeah.
going into the sort of the dark, harder, these themes of death and resurrection.
Mm.
They're just they're just scattered for us, aren't they, right through
Yeah.
history.
Yeah.
And I suppose one of the eerie things about your venture capitalist's vision of the future is that the tech-driven world, the tech-enhanced world, is only one of expansion and improvement,
Yes. Yeah.
progress and growth.
Yeah.
Everything that goes like that up on the graph, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As the tech just makes our I've heard people talk about ChatGPT as an intelligence enhancer. Like, if you're not using it to expand and enhance your intelligence and your capability, you're going to fall behind, and that's probably true in those kind of spaces. But there is something about death and
Yeah.
the death of things in us, even the death of caffeine in me in
Yeah.
these last few weeks. Mate, it's been so hard. I
Yeah.
I really didn't expect it to be so difficult to drop
No,
caffeine.
right. Yeah.
Um,
All done.
and yeah, I've been drinking. I started off like my first 48 hours. I was drinking my kid's squash because I was thinking like, oh, maybe I just like squash now. I just fancy a squash. And then I realized it was just this compensatory sugar, which is why I guess you go full purge, don't you? But
Yeah.
maybe that's one for next year. But I think it's just so good, isn't it? It's just such a
Yeah.
picture of uh, the story, the big
Yeah.
story that is most truthfully and unequivocally given to us in the life and death and resurrection of Jesus.
Yeah.
But it's right through scripture, and it's written right through the code of nature. Is this
Yeah.
idea
Yeah.
of it, when things die, there is blessing from that.
Yeah.
You know, I remember seeing a documentary about elephant bones, or dead elephants. They filmed this carcass of this adult elephant that had lain down to die, and then they just tracked all of the creatures that benefited, as the body of that elephant enriched the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Um, and it's hard. That's hard. That's that's not something that the digital world really prepares us for, but
No,
the natural world
it does.
prepares us for it.
Yeah, and in that sense, it is countercultural, that that kind of narrative, because we're told that life should be linear,
Yes.
and it should be always progress, progress, and you keep bringing on, so-called life-giving things, but actually,
Yeah.
in the fullness of life, does mean that there should be this natural cycle of letting go of things, ending a season and putting things down, letting them rest, whatever it is. I mean, like, even probably, I mean, you started your work as a social worker, is that right?
That's right.
So, like,
Yeah.
the season when you thought, well, okay, I really want to go into full-time ministry, so
Yeah.
this has got to die,
Yeah.
it's got to fall away.
Yeah. And there's always something, a voice in your head saying that don't let that die. Keep your registration, keep
Okay,
your
yes,
social work, keep
yeah,
like your social work accreditation. That would be sensible.
right, yeah,
So somehow try and juggle the two together. And I think that is partly why people in modern life get so busy. It's
yeah,
because we're not trained to let things die.
mm,
We're
yeah,
not, and I think about, again, just going back to farming life, the seasons of things. There's seasons of harvest, and then there's quieter seasons where farming is less busy, or it ought to be, and it can be. Like, there are seasons when farming goes a bit quieter, and you're just doing routine kind of work, feeding up and yard work and that kind of thing, and just preparing. Um, what I think one of the reasons why we are so busy is because it's hard for us to let things die, because we see that as sort of failure, or not keeping our options open, or something. I don't know. So Yeah,
a
that was
lot.
definitely that was definitely
Yeah.
one of those where something had to go and die.
I mean,
Yeah,
this is something that I would say I struggle with as well. So this is really,
really.
and it's something that this is why, I really enjoy this Lenten journey, to kind of remind myself and
Yes.
to
Yeah.
actually, no, this is the work. This is the work I've got to apply to my life every day. And
Mm.
one of my reflections on letting things go is our ability to grieve things. I think is we're not coached into grieving well, and it just as a society. I mean, this is probably other societies are different, but for our society, I see we hide grief. We detach ourselves from the very real reality that people are dying every day, as well as being born every day. And whether we don't include our children in that kind of in funerals or that grieving process, or um, we just kind of put it out the back of our mind until it happens, and then it's like, bam, oh man, I wasn't prepared for this, or anyway. And I think in some way, for me, I can see that playing into his general life, where we're not well practiced in grieving for things. So
Yeah.
go back to your example of being a social worker. I don't
Mhm.
know the details of that, but there was a process when you were saying, okay, that's got to stop. Um, can we give ourselves the ability to grieve it and say, oh, it was great, but there's gonna be things I'm gonna really miss in it, and I'm gonna grieve it for a time, and then send it off on its way, as
Yeah.
opposed to trying to hold on to it slightly, or those type of things. So that for me is something I've been trying to practice over the last few years, is to acknowledge that I really love that thing or doing that thing, but the season is end. I need to let it go and grieve, and acknowledge that my love of it, but send it away and let it die. So yeah, I don't know if if that resonates with you at all, kind of the grief.
I think so, and particularly when you're talking about preparing ourselves for just like these really big moments of life. Going back to COVID, like I think lots of people that probably all of us knew really had a really difficult time
Hmm.
adjusting to that. And of course, because it was so unprecedented, and how could we have prepared ourselves for that? But um, yeah, my dad said something quite interesting a few years ago. A really close family friend died, and they had one of those funerals which was like everyone wear bright colors, and
Right.
like we're not using the word funeral, it's Thanksgiving, and we want everyone to be really joyful. And he was really mad about it. He was like, like I don't want to. Like I want to wear black and I want to mourn. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm
Right. Yeah.
I'm raging. I'm really angry,
Yeah.
and that's where he was at. And I don't want to be like performative in
Yeah.
that space and be like, oh, okay, I'll wear a football shirt or whatever.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
and that was at first I thought he was being a bit sort of grumpy old man, but I also do really get that this idea that kind of what are we preparing ourselves for? Are we preparing ourselves? And for me, as someone in youth ministry, are we preparing young people for the really big stuff in life? As someone who works for a church, who kind of carries that pastoral responsibility of sharing my life and sharing God's love with a cohort of young people.
Yeah.
Am I preparing? This is a thing that I think about all the time. Am I preparing them to just like make a commitment to be baptized,
Right.
like just to make a commitment to cognitively believe and kind of subscribe to these beliefs, um, or am I really trying to prepare them for what life will be like when they're 19 and 20 and beyond, and they've left maybe our church, they've left the family home.
Yeah.
Um, I think about that a lot because
Mhm.
it's as we've already touched on, it's not a culture that prepares us for those big ugly things very well.
No. Oh, thank you. Thank you on behalf of my children and other
I love it.
children, that you consider that, and you're thinking on that, because that's beautiful, and I think that's how it should be.
Mm.
It's really,
Mm.
really great. You're kind of in the throes of planning a new venture around kind of youth teaching
Yeah,
and something that involves the environment. Do you want to just share a little bit about that?
yeah, sure. So for it's almost exactly a year now. That I've spent a day a week. Some people here at Hope and elsewhere have been supporting me to spend my Tuesdays working on yeah, much of what we've been talking about here, which is that people who are the generation of your kids and below um, live very much in a virtual world,
Mm.
and um, how do we lots of as is well documented, and I don't need to go into detail here. Lots of the things in modern life are really engineered to be addictive, aren't they? They're
Yeah,
engineered to keep us coming back,
yeah,
and that's a money thing. Um, and your my process with caffeine, a lot of what the guys who are listening to this are doing around food and sugar is a really living parable of this, but
yeah,
tech is a big one too.
yeah,
um I wanted to really dig into that because I don't think sort of there's there's much out there in youth ministry that's really addressing the fact that if we're really dependent on all of these kind of engineered things, then life with God can feel impossible for a young person.
yeah,
You know, if you've got this kind of growing sense that you can't be free, um, that creates a lot of shame, basically.
yeah.
That life doesn't feel free. Um, and so I've been working on this material that's rooted in the Beatitudes, actually, which I think is we haven't probably got time for it, but just also just a wonderful Lenten reflection,
Right.
Beatitudes, because
Yeah.
it begins like the first utterance of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew's Gospel is "Blessed are the poor in spirit,"
Mm.
um, or I think Eugene Peterson in the Message says, "Blessed are you when you're at the end of yourself," and that's exactly what we've just been talking about. That's winter,
Yeah.
that's death, it's the
Yeah.
end of me, that's my limitations.
Yeah.
That's me saying I am actually incredibly vulnerable. I
Mm.
can't have it all, and tech's never going to give it to me.
Yeah.
So wanting to work in that space where we're working directly with young people on, fill in the blank, whatever it might be. It might be screen time, it might be pornography, it might be all of the things that I was doing when I was working in social work with young people. I was doing substance misuse work,
Right.
kind of exploring those things
Yeah.
that lie beneath our urges. So as I've come off caffeine, it makes me a worse dad, right? So then, like, why? Okay, so if I take away caffeine, I need to press into that space of impatience or whatever it is,
Yeah. Mm.
ratty sort of inner core there. I need to
Yeah.
press into that, and I need to be like, man, that's poverty of spirit. I need Christ. I need the blessing of Jesus to show me kind of what's beyond that. And so, um, my my hope, my desire, something I'm praying for, is that we might have something that's focused for young people, a physical space, as we were talking
Yeah.
about before, that is in a sort of farming, natural world, natural beauty type spot that can be a retreat for them to explore those things.
Mm.
And because I think there's nothing really out there for young people that's in between going on a silent Benedictine retreat, which
Yeah.
most 16-year-olds probably are not going to do, fair
No.
enough, versus on the other end of the spectrum, a kind of a summer Christian youth festival where it's very not to be at all critical, but it's very stimulating.
Yeah.
You've got some of the same issues that you've got online, which is
Right.
it's
Okay.
overstimulating.
Yeah.
They're very powerful moments and experiences. So I'd love to just try and see if we can navigate a path between the very kind of adult silent retreat and the big Christian youth festival. So that would be the dream. Working on it one day a week, so it's quite slow going, but that's okay. I think I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I think it's good. Yeah.
Oh, bless you in that, and praying for the it's unfolding into its
Right.
fullness. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's great, really good. And you, yeah, what you just touched on there about the the coming off the caffeine and what it reveals in you. I think that's a really big part of this Lent journey, and that's why it's a challenge because
Yeah.
you're intentionally kind of uh, going naked into this
Yes.
space and kind of uncovering things that you maybe that you would normally cover up.
Yeah.
by something else, and maybe you don't even know it's there.
Yeah.
And that for me, there's always something new that kind of is revealed, or I kind of it's highlighted for me in this journey. So I'm very grateful for being able to do it and to be able to do that with others and being encouraged
Yeah.
by others to do that. And
And to,
so sorry.
to encourage you as well, which we've already touched on in this conversation, is
Yeah.
that there's loads of young people who really want to jump on with Renew. And it's
Right.
been this kind of really interesting accidental youth workspace for you, hasn't it?
So
And
yeah.
I've been hearing loads of stories recently of young people, not from any kind of Christian context, background, whatever, walking into churches. People, lots of students in our city here in Bristol just wandering into churches and saying, "Hey, these are people who are in their middle teens, maybe were living through COVID in that
Yeah.
time, and they got to the end. I reckon they just got to the end of it, mate. I
Yeah.
think they got to the
Yeah.
end of screen time, Xbox, porn. They're just at the end of all that stuff, and they are just really hungry for a sacred space, a
Mm.
physical place of sanctuary, and they're wandering into these beautiful churches. They're wandering into the cathedral. They're wandering to Christchurch, Clifton, and they're just being like, "Yeah, I've been praying," or like, "I've read my Bible over COVID." Like tons and tons of story right now of kids like
Okay.
19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating, and I think that our young people who might be listening to this, if they've listened this far through our long chat, uh, I think they're attracted to Renew because it's a physical space. It happens season by season out in your
Yeah.
garden there in the woods,
Yeah.
and they're face to face with people, and they're
Yeah.
hungry for that as well. They live a lot of their own lives online, and it's important space for them, but
Mm.
they're hungry for something else that maybe
Mm.
we think it is normal.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for the encouragement, and that's really amazing to hear that's happening. Really, really good. So, as we kind of like coming to land now, we're just maybe just final thoughts for you about this Lent process, this Lenten journey, and kind of mirroring Jesus's journey into the wilderness environment, and and then from that environment of barrenness and emptiness and trial, coming an amazing ministry that you talk about. Um, what you talked about before about how tech, it doesn't, it's always progressive, it's kind of linear. But in terms of the most impactful, the most kind of explosive reality that this universe ever seen is the death and resurrection of Jesus. That came from this place of dying and then being reborn. So that kind of,
Yeah,
tech is never going to be able to match that.
yeah,
But just out of that act that he did during that wilderness period, those 40 days, what for you is in terms of us help us reposture towards that reality of the cross? What is the real hope in that journey that Jesus went on?
yeah. You broke up a bit there, but I think what you were asking was, um, how does that wilderness experience give us hope? Was that roughly what you said there?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Oh, I just think um I just think it's fantastic, wonderful news that we are limited and that we're vulnerable and that this crown that all of us are trying to wear and carry around that's too heavy, this this idea of myself at the center.
Mm.
Not only that it has to die, but it can die. Like you can let it die. Just let it die.
Mm.
And that there is one who's worthy of wearing that crown.
Mm.
And I watched this video quite recently. It wasn't a Christian guy or anything. He was a secular journalist, and he's written this book. I can't remember what it's called, but the gist of it is that you'll never get to the end of your to-do list. that we think that if we become more and more efficient and more competent, we'll just finally get there, and we'll be really good, and our kids will be thriving, and our houses will be really clean, and our bodies will be really good and fit and strong. And
Yeah.
a little bit like Howard was saying about his knee and all of that kind of stuff, that like, yeah, and as we've touched on, you can you can let it die,
Yeah.
and he goes first. We're created naked before God in the garden, and then we don't like that. That's a hard experience for us, so we cover it up with fig leaves and all kinds of other things to make us feel less naked, makes us feel more competent and adult and well. And so he goes naked before us
Yeah.
on the cross. He goes naked
Yeah.
for us,
Mm.
and 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 that means that we can release, like we can relinquish all of that stuff. And so I think that in that sense, the death of the things and the values that we hold most um, core, and we cling to the most, is actually wonderful news.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Thank you, Charlie. That's a great way to wrap this up. Um, you've
Cool.
you've given us loads of gems there, and loads of stuff to reflect on, to consider this week. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you
No
for
worries, Malcolm.
all that you bring.
Keep on going. We're nearly there.
Yeah, we're almost there. Yeah, maybe, go easy on the caffeine when it comes back in.
Yes, yeah.
Don't go for a double shot espresso.
No, I have already been thinking about my first coffee, and I think that's a sign, isn't it? Go a little bit easy.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Bless you, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mal. Speak to you soon.